This morning, let us focus on our sister Isle Tobago. We welcome to the program Dr. Faith B. Israel. Good morning, Dr. B. Israel.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning, guys. I was actually really enjoying the program before. I did not mind not coming on at all and listening to the doctor before me. He was doing an amazing job.
Well, we always appreciate having Dr. Bagan on the program, but we have to talk about Tobago, and we will not end our Friday discussions without having that discussion. So thank you for joining us. But straight into the topic at hand, we're speaking about the development of Tobago and potential avenues for development. We've had the conversation of autonomy before, and that seems to have taken a backburner for now, because I am sure that will be raised going forward again. But in terms of the development of Tobago, in terms of potential avenues for growth, where do we see Tobago heading, and what are some of the possibilities to harness the full potential of Tobago?
Sure. Well, I have to say that I think the only reason we've seen the autonomy issue take a back burner for those on the other side is because it is not working in their political favor. Again, going back to the idea that this was only done to score political points and not really to give Tobago the kind of autonomy that we need and we deserve. Now, when it comes to developing Tobago, we have actually been spending quite a lot of time thinking about what this island actually needs to ensure that it develops in a way that is equitable, to ensure that east and west of the island gets its due diligence, and to ensure that all of us come out of a developed Tobago feeling as if we have been part of that process. One of the things that we have proposed, for example, which does not currently happen now, is to include in the funding mechanism for the Tobago House of Assembly, a mechanism that allows every village or every district to get funding. So, for example, what happens right now is that the THA overall gets funding. The various divisions get funding per division, but the exact district or the specific village is not allotted any funding, which means that for me to do something, for example, I'm from the village of Belgarden. For me to do something in Belgarden that relates to sports, for example, I would then need to go to the division of sports to have that conversation with them. If it is not in their interest or it's not a priority for the division of sport, then what is needed in my district, in my village, may not happen. But if we have community funding designated for each community, even if it may not be a priority for the division of sport, because my district needs this, it can be done. Now, what does that do? That actually allows further decentralization of the management and of the development of the island. And this is something I think we should look at collectively, we should look at all over. One of the other things we are also thinking about doing in terms of managing that is, again, I use my example. In a situation where I want to develop a sporting field in my district, I would ensure that the individuals in my district, the contractors, the builders, the plumbers, the electrician, those people actually come from the district, because what we recognize is happening is that you get a contract, somehow that contract is outsourced to even a Trinidad company, for example, and the individuals who are right there, right next to where the development is quote unquote happening, does not actually benefit from the monies that is being pumped in. So again, it goes back to thinking about development holistically, thinking about it in terms of what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, and who it benefits is absolutely critical. So that's how we have been thinking about the kind of development that needs to happen for Tobago to collectively ensure that we develop on par.
Well, Dr. B. Israel, to your first point about each village getting a piece of the pie, getting funding, how sustainable might that be? Because if you have more channels in which more money flows, doesn't that lead to a high possibility of corruption, and perhaps we may not have as much accountability as we have now? I'm not saying the accountability we have now is anything great, but doesn't it lead to, isn't it more opaque rather than transparent if there are more channels, more avenues for money to flow?
Well, I actually disagree with that because you have to put the systems in place. The reason it does not work now is because the systems that are there are not being adhered to. The thing about doing it on a smaller scale is that you actually have more eyes looking at you. When it's at the larger level, you hear that there was $1 million allocated to a particular project. But because we don't have all of those eyes looking, we say, well, okay, we're not sure. If you say to Bell Garden, I am promising you, if we tell Bell Garden that we are spending $50,000 in Bell Garden, I promise you that Miss so down the road will be the one screaming if she does not see what she thinks is $50,000 being spent next to her. So because we have all of those eyes looking at us, because we have that kind of small scale community development, because we have literally the whole village watching, I think we would actually have a better use of the money. And then I, for example, as the area representative, as the one saying this is what we're doing, I would have to account to Miss so down the road who literally lives 5 minutes from me, who will be at my doorstep cussing me tomorrow morning if it doesn't work. That is the kind of accountability we think that would force what you are talking about to happen, which does not currently happen now because all of these decisions are so far away from the people.
Do you think that over the last few years, considering the budget allocation, and that's debatable as well, Tobago has not always gotten what is really due to them. It hasn't always gotten what is asked of them, but with the money that it has been given, especially for development, not for recurrent expenditure, but for development, have we seen that put to good use, or is it that we're still questioning what development are we talking about?
And that is exactly part of the problem. Again, it goes back to not really linking the money that we have, as little as it is. And I would always say, I would always keep fighting for more money to come to Tobago because we need more money. But the money that is already there, the money that we get every single day, we need to ensure that it is better spent. Now, for example, the last big hoopla in Tobago about development funding is for something that is known as agricultural access roads. We have been spending millions every year, budgeted $40–50 million of money to agricultural access roads. The money gets spent. We have no idea where these access roads are. The farmers are still telling us we need our roads fixed, what's going on, and that is the kind of issue that we have right now. So yes, we have money that is being misspent. And if we actually had closer connections with where the money is going, so that we know that the 10 access roads are this one, the 20 farmers in each access road that we are going that's going to benefit from this. And then we have to link the production of those farmers to spending of that money. So, I am not going to spend $5 million on a quote-unquote access road for a farmer who then says, well, we're not doing anything this year. No, we can't work like that. We have to all work together to ensure that when the money is spent, it is actually quantified and the investment brings returns.
Dr. B. Israel, what about, because in terms of development and potential avenues for growth, should Tobago also focus on a blue economy? We know that 3 beaches in Tobago, I believe it's Mount Irvin, Bloody Bay and Kings Bay, they have blue flag status. The main ridge is the oldest legally protected forest reserve in the Western Hemisphere. A blue economy is a major way forward for Tobago. Is that something that needs to be focused on more going forward?
Exactly, because I think that is actually one of our biggest resources. Yes, the beach on the one side and our other environmental like the trees and the main forest and that kind of thing. And we have to think about it not just in a way to bring individuals to see those, but how can we harness what those bring for us? So, for example, I personally believe that the cure for COVID, we have it somewhere in the bush in Tobago. I personally believe that. But because we do not have, for example, a University of Tobago that is dedicated to identifying all of our herbs, dedicated to researching them, dedicated to finding out what is the best combination of this bush and that bush and the other bush, we don't know that we have the cure for COVID right here in Tobago. And it is that kind of linking of all of the services, linking of all of the systems that I think benefits us. So yes, having focus on the blue economy, focusing on what is in the sea, focusing on what is around us in the air, focusing on what is in our rainforest and so forth, I think is all part of it. And then that can be linked to tourism as well. Because if we have, for example, a university here that is saying, we are doing a study where we are looking for the cure for COVID, we are going to actually bring naturalists from all over the world who will be very interested in coming to Tobago and studying the different herbs, studying the different things that we have here to see if it really is here and what we can gain from it. Again, it's thinking about development holistically and not just thinking about development in terms of building huge structures, because I don't think that Tobago would actually benefit from huge structures, but we can benefit from using all of the other resources that we have at hand.
I'd just like to support what you say and maybe ask a follow-up question, because I think your philosophy with regards to giving money to the villages and the districts, it's actually just a furthering of the philosophy of Tobago autonomy. Tobago is not necessarily Trinidad. What is good for Trinidad is not necessarily good for Tobago. What is good for different parts of Tobago is best known to the people in the different areas. With regards to tourism in particular, Tobago's tourism is very different to Trinidad's tourism, and the opportunities that are afforded to Tobago are actually, you could even say, some people might make the mistake of wanting to see what's in Barbados or St. Lucia or some other Caribbean island. And ironically, Tobago is in a spot where its natural resources are of an abundant level, whether it is for scientific reasons, whether it is just for ecological tourism, bird watchers, nature lovers, to experience that side of the Caribbean, which, as you rightfully pointed out, a big concrete building is not really. If I come from Europe, from a city, why do I want to come to another building? But I have to ask, with regards to tourism, has any thought been put into looking at it holistically? Because I have found that in the past, it seemed as though it was very haphazard. When you look at the development of the Crown Point area, that's not what we're seeing. We're not seeing Tobago being taken advantage of with its unique attributes. We're just seeing random concrete buildings being piled next to each other.
We're just utilizing land space.
Yeah.
Right, and this is why, again, it goes back to our model of tourism is what, I affectionately call it the Castara model. And it really is a community-based model that says what works for Castara is not necessarily what works for Crown Point. And, that's a perfect example. When we are developing tourism in Castara, Castara is a very scenic, very natural thing. When you look at the bed and breakfasts and the small huts and stuff like that in Castara, that is why tourists go to Castara. The kind of tourist that goes to Castara is not the same kind of tourist that would go to Crown Point, for example. And that's fine. And this is why we want to allow the villages, the communities to develop for themselves. Crown Point may actually be very much like a strip mall, like that kind of nightlife kind of situation. So if you come to Tobago, and we market it exactly like that. If you come to Tobago and you are looking to lime whole night, you're looking for that kind of Las Vegas kind of scene, situation, the Arapita Avenue kind of situation, you stay in Crown Point if that's what you like. But if you want something quiet and scenic and want to be on the beach and that kind of thing, you go to Castara. But we have to actively, specifically develop the communities in that kind of way to allow for the different things to happen and market that specifically to the people who would want what we are offering.
Now, you mentioned the University of Tobago, and I believe most recently there was a ceremony for the establishment of a tertiary institution in Tobago, which, okay, fine, fair enough. Whether or not that is a political ploy or whether or not that's genuine, we shall see. However, do you think a University of Tobago is something that could work at this point in time? Central government might argue it's unnecessary. We already have the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Is the only way a University of Tobago going to work or be beneficial to the island of Tobago? Would that be through autonomy, once Tobago gets autonomy? Or could that happen while we still have central government handling the affairs, or the majority of the affairs of Tobago?
You're right, that has to be a Tobago-led initiative because it's quite clear that when those in Trinidad speak about a university, they think about it in a particular way. But when we speak about it, we think about it differently. We think about a University of Tobago that benefits Tobago and benefits Trinidad and Tobago because it does not just cater to Tobagonians or Trinidadians. When we are looking at a University of Tobago, we are looking at one that is actually paired or partnered with some of the larger, more recognized universities all over the world, where we would have exchange programs, for example, with our professors, large-scale professors. You know, I went to school in Pittsburgh. I went to the University of Pittsburgh, and I know for a fact that when you talk about some of the professors there, children or patients, for example, came to the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center simply because of a specific doctor that was stationed there, because that doctor was renowned for a particular kind of specialty. And that's what we are talking about in Tobago for a University of Tobago, where we will be partnering, for example, with Johns Hopkins, for example, if we're talking about medical or allied health kind of thing. So we are not just focusing on Tobago students going to the university or Trinidad students going to the university. We're talking about worldwide students coming to Tobago to go to our university. Very much like what happened in Grenada. I think Grenada is a perfect example of that. St. George's in Grenada does not just cater to Grenadian citizens. As a matter of fact, most of the students in St. George's are not Grenadians. Most of them are from other countries all over the world. And that's the kind of university we are looking for. And that would actually bring in some of the foreign exchange that we absolutely need in Trinidad and Tobago. And this is why developing Tobago in a way that actually works for us actually helps to develop Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, Dr. Faith B. Israel used a very good example in St. George's University that has really boosted the economy in Tobago and has also led to micro businesses establishing themselves into bigger entities. So very good point there. But we focused on the blue economy. We focused on development in terms of every village getting an allocation, more funding, and even the University of Tobago, that is a potential idea for growth and development in Tobago. I want to thank you for joining us on this morning's edition of Talking Point. Always a pleasure having you on the program. Every Friday here, you can join us with Dr. Faith B. Israel. So, I know you're rather busy these days, so we wish you all the very best, and please stay safe.
Thank you so much. And yes, we are busy, but hey, this is what we have to do.
We have to do it for Trinidad as well. So, Dr. B. Israel, you keep well, and until then, bye-bye.
Thanks.
All right, folks, so we break for news on the hour here on WESN, and when we